people who have been here for 20, 30 years, who have U.S. citizen children, who are in their 20s, who are in their teens, in many cases U.S. citizen grandchildren. The degree of embeddedness in the fabric of Los Angeles that this community has is the reason I think that these enforcement actions and the way they were carried out really struck a nerve.
Donald Trump organizó un desfile millonario para celebrar su cumpleaños, pagado con el dinero de los impuestos, con muchas semanas de preparación, y todo esto con la intención de mostrar poder. ¿Qué fue lo que consiguió? Un bochorno total, un fracaso épico. Y sí, amigos, una lluvia de burlas que, seamos honestos, fue un hermoso regalo para nosotros y un pésimo día para él. Sean bienvenidos a Políticamente Desacuerdo. Señores, hoy veremos cómo Trump se enfurece mientras una pequeña multitud abandona el desfile en su cumpleaños, que por cierto estaba muy vacío. Así que los invito a que se queden hasta el final de este video porque voy a mostrarles las imágenes, los videos, dejando en ridículo al presidente Trump. Bueno, señores, antes de que vayamos a hablar de todo este desastre en Washington, quiero mostrarles algo que sí fue emocionante, y es las manifestaciones que ocurrieron en el resto del país mientras sucedía este desfile millonario. Hablamos que desde Los Ángeles hasta Chicago, pasando por grupos de adultos mayores en Salt Lake City, la gente salió a las calles para decirle no al autoritarismo. Escuchemos lo que dijo el congresista Jamie Raskin, porque, señores, sus palabras capturaron perfectamente el espíritu de esta jornada. Escuchemos.
Records or who have open warrants, they're going to work, they're going to places like home parking lots, car washes, garment factories, places where people go to work who have been here. I've spoken to several families who've been affected by these raids. People who have been here for 20, 30 years, who have U.S. citizen children, who are in their 20s, who are in their teens, in many cases U.S. citizen grandchildren. The degree of embeddedness in the fabric of Los Angeles that this community has is the reason I think that these enforcement actions and the way they were carried out really struck a nerve, and it's why we're seeing what we're seeing today and why we're seeing what we've been seeing over the course of the last week.
You're spot on. That is what's bringing people out, because these numbers are absolutely overwhelming downtown Los Angeles right now. Let's just hope and pray that it all stays.
And Musk now says that Trump should be impeached, and Trump says that Musk should be investigated for his tens of billions of dollars in federal contracts, and for once, they're both right. My friends, fascism will not be the end of American democracy. American democracy will be the end of fascism. We will stand up for democracy and human rights and freedom all over the world. We will stand with President Zelensky and the people of Ukraine against Putin's filthy, bloodthirsty invasion. We will stand with the people of Greenland, the people of Europe and Africa, the people of Canada and Mexico, for our common right to trade with each other, to respect each other, to travel and migrate and seek asylum without fear and without terror. We are the ones fighting against terror and tyranny today. And I look at you today, Philadelphia, and I know we are winning. We are winning. No, you don't get to be a monarch or a dictator in America, and you don't get to be on the payroll of monarchs and dictators from other countries. Sorry, Donald, you don't get to keep the millions of dollars you've pocketed from Saudi Arabia, from China, from the United Arab Emirates or Qatar. We've got no kings and we've got no slaves. We've got no masters and no serfs. Those of us who aspire and attain to public office are nothing but the servants of the people. And the moment that somebody in public office begins to act like the master of the people, that is the moment to evict, eject, reject, impeach, try, convict, and start all over again.
Y es que, señores, ¿qué les puedo decir? Escenas poderosas por todo el país. Millones y millones de personas demostrando que Estados Unidos no es una monarquía, que no se quiere dictadores. Y cuando alguien intenta imponerse como un rey, la gente sale a las calles a dejarnos claro que aquí manda la democracia. Y miren, a mí me agrada mucho el tema de ver gente movilizarse, ¿no? Pero no les voy a mentir. Ver que nadie se presentó al cumpleaños de Trump me dio casi la misma alegría. O bueno, quizás un poquito más. Lo que vimos en su desfile fue esta definición de la mismísima humillación. Las calles vacías, sin filas de personas, sin el entusiasmo, sin nada. Solo vemos a un Trump con el ego inflado y la nada absoluta. Miren este video. Imágenes como estas son las que se compartieron por todos lados. No hubo necesidad de colocar vallas para contener multitudes, porque, señores, no había multitudes. Ni siquiera una modesta aglomeración. Literalmente Washington lo ignoró. Y si me preguntan, creo que hasta el clima se puso en contra de él. Comenzó a llover, bueno, y dicen, ¿no?, que en este caso parece que hasta la madre naturaleza es demócrata. Bueno, por si eso no fuese lo suficiente, agárrense. ¿Saben quién patrocinó este evento fallido? Nada más y nada menos que la empresa Coinbase. Es un famoso exchange de criptomonedas. Así que Trump no solo aprovechó el aniversario número 250 de las Fuerzas Armadas para inflarse el pecho y derrochar dinero público, sino que de paso podría haber intentado embolsarse algo de cripto efectivo. Porque claro, amigos, en su mundo todo se trata de sacarle provecho a lo que sea. Ahora volvamos a lo positivo, señores, porque lo que vimos hoy no fue solo un desplome en su desfile ridículo. Fue una muestra del verdadero espíritu estadounidense. Hablamos de millones de personas que salieron a mostrar que no se dejarán engañar, que están dispuestos a defender los valores. Escuchemos un poco más de lo que dijo Jamie Raskin esta mañana.
So join us now to discuss is Representative Jamie Raskin of Maryland, who is the ranking Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman Raskin, thanks so much for being with us. We want to start out today by playing something that Pete Hegseth said today at a congressional hearing. Let's go with that.
Can you assure the American people on two things? You will respect any Supreme Court decision on this matter about whether the Marines are constitutional, and you will respect the district courts when they rule before the Supreme Court rules?
What I can say is we should not have local judges determining foreign policy or national security policy for the country.
So you're not willing to say you would respect those decisions?
What I'm saying is local district judges shouldn't make foreign policy for the United States.
That exchange happened on Thursday of this week. So, Congressman, when you have the Secretary of Defense saying that, yes, Marines might defy court orders, are we at a constitutional crisis?
Well, we clearly have too many DUI hires in the Trump administration, starting with Secretary Hegseth. But look, the Constitution says that the Constitution and federal law are supreme. We have a supreme constitution. We don't have a supreme leader. We have no dictators here. We have no kings. We have no monarchs. This is civilian government, and there's a reason that Congress is in Article 1, and all legislative power is vested in the Congress, just like all judicial power is vested in the Supreme Court and in the inferior court. So what's the job of the president? To take care that the laws are faithfully executed. So let the message go out through the Trump administration. Your job is to faithfully execute the laws that have been adopted by the people in the House, in the Senate, and signed into law by the president.
Congressman, you know, President Trump this week, and we played the sound, but probably don't need to play it again, but you heard and you've seen it, that the people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force, heavy force, he said later. I guess I'm just curious what this is not new rhetoric, right? You've been paying attention to Donald Trump for a very long time, but does it feel like it's ratcheted up and that where the tensions are right now with everything we're watching, does it feel scarier?
Well, and this is a critical point because having the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, the freedom of the press, the right to petition government for redress of grievances, the right of the people to freely assemble is the very opposite of having a king, because kings brook no dissent. They don't tolerate people's free speech. So that's why in the last several weeks we've seen some remarkable things happen. We saw a state judge arrested in Wisconsin. Our colleague, Senator Padilla, was thrown to the ground with his arms behind his back and handcuffed. My colleague, LaMonica MacGyver from New Jersey, just received a criminal indictment and faces 17 years in prison because she went to a scheduled appointment at an ICE facility and then was in that scrum of people around the mayor of Newark as they decided to manhandle him. They sent the Marines to California, and they illegally tried to federalize the National Guard in California. But the remarkable thing about our constitutional system is how resilient all the other parts of the government are. And I'm proud of the governor of California, the mayor of Los Angeles, the sheriff, and the chief of police there who said, thanks, but no thanks. We don't need your help. You're just going to make things worse. And so far, we're winning in court there. There are now 184 federal preliminary injunctions or temporary restraining orders against this reign of lawlessness across the country. And today we're going to see a magnificent manifestation of the freedom of speech and what it means to have that in our society.
You know, Congressman, I want to pick up on something because as you were running through the litany of public officials, elected officials who have been retaliated against by this administration, you talked about, you know, the scheduled appointment, and that made me think of all the immigrants we have seen be detained, removed, deported from hearings, appointments, to be a part of the legal process, following the rules that they were told to follow, and getting snatched up by the immigration services. And I'm going to put up this headline from military.com from yesterday. ICE arrests Louisiana mother of a 9-week-old wife of Marine at immigration hearing. And this case highlights how the Trump administration's immigration crackdown is increasingly being driven by arrests at immigration check-ins and court hearings. If people are showing up at court, if people are showing up at immigration check-ins, they are following the rules. They are following the laws as set forth by the American government.
Yeah. Well, and this is unfortunately a standard practice now. We've been seeing this happen all over the country. That was the same occasion upon which the judge in Wisconsin was arrested as well. You know, to preview what I'm going to be talking about at the No Kings rallies today, I went through the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Particulars that was leveled against King George. And one of the very early things that the colonists were complaining about was the fact that the king was interfering with naturalization and people's ability to get into the country. And so there are some striking analogies between the things that the American revolutionaries said about King George and about what's going on today, like stationing troops in people's communities over the objections of the local officials.
Y es que eso es exactamente lo que se necesita, amigos. Un mensaje inspirador, poderoso, con mucha esperanza. Y tengo que admitirlo. Ver que Trump hace el ridículo su cumpleaños es algo que a muchos tal vez le alegra el día. Pero bueno, señores, pasemos ahora a hablar del otro lado de la cara de la moneda. Los Ángeles. ¿Qué pasa cuando un presidente decide inflar la realidad solo para crear caos político? Si les dijera que esto no solo afecta a una ciudad, señores, sino que esto puede ver cómo se ven las protestas, cambiar la narrativa, cómo lo ven los medios, cómo lo siente el poder del gobierno. Los Ángeles ha sido prácticamente este escenario de protestas masivas relacionadas con las redadas migratorias y políticas anti-inmigrantes, todas las cuales son impulsadas por Trump. Pero que hay un detalle. Según la alcaldesa Karen Bass, el gobierno federal manipuló la percepción de estas protestas. Prácticamente nos pintaron un cuadro de caos y de violencia que simplemente no existía. Según ella, esto se hizo para justificar la intervención federal, incluso cuando la ciudad está bajo control. O sea, lo que vemos aquí es un caso muy claro de cómo la narrativa política es la que puede terminar moldeando la realidad. Y no siempre. Ahora bien, antes de profundizar el análisis, quiero que vean este clip con la propia alcaldesa. Escuchemos.
Joining us now, the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass. Mayor Bass, thank you for joining us. I know it's a very busy week for you. I want to start with, can you describe for us the atmosphere in your city right now? You warned against protests getting violent. Are people listening?
I think so. I mean, I think that it has really been a lot calmer over the last couple of days. Again, we're encouraging people, exercise your First Amendment right, but your First Amendment right doesn't include violence and vandalism. What is happening now, there's probably 20,000 people in downtown LA, and everything is peaceful. You know how these things happen sometimes. It's at the end of the protest, maybe people who are not even connected to the protest that get involved in this type of activity. But we have definitely seen far less in the last couple of days. Now, you know also that these protests are taking place all over the city. So all over the city, and I should say all over our county. And just a little bit of context, Los Angeles is 500 square miles. And the protests that have been happening before today were taking place in not even 1 square mile. So unfortunately, the Trump administration has blown it up to create a very false picture that the city was in chaos, and nothing could be further from the truth.
You said far less. Do you mean far less violent or far less protesters? Because the protests themselves have been absolutely massive.
Right. No, I meant in terms of arrests. For example, the first night of the curfew, there were over 100 arrests. Last night, there were 19, and none of them were for violence or vandalism. They were for curfew as well as unlawful assembly. And so the character has changed, you know, as well as the numbers. But I will tell you that the protests every day have not been massive. The numbers have been up and down. There was a very large protest on Monday after our beloved labor leader, David Huerta, was released. There was a very large protest, protest there, as well as a vigil. But for the most part, the numbers have been up and down. The massive protest is taking place right now.
Now, when you talk about there was 100 people arrested Monday night, last night it was just 19. Who's conducting this? Who's managing it? Is this the LAPD, which you oversee, or is it the National Guard, which normally the governor would have control of, but right now it's been federalized?
Well, I mean, that's the thing, Stephanie, is that the National Guard, the federalized National Guard, so they're not even like the normal National Guard, they are protecting one building. They are not involved in crowd control. They're not interacting with the crowds. And so who is keeping peace in our city is absolutely the LAPD, with support from the sheriffs and also the surrounding cities when it's needed. And so the portrayal of the city that it took the president's intervention to calm things down, I'm sure you know by now, he proclaimed that when the National Guard wasn't even here. And this is not, shocking. We've seen this happen before. So now that there are rumors, of the Marines here, the problem is that those kind of things that are happening, whether it's the federalized National Guard or whether it's the Marines, we're operating on rumor because we don't know specifically what is going on and what is their mission.
Are you or your office communicating with the president or the White House? Because a great deal of communication and coordination would be essential given the size and scope of this.
Attempting to, but have not heard back.
So how do you know what they're doing? Rumor or watching it on TV or reading their tweets?
Well, that is the point. Rumor. There's sightings all over the city, but for the most part, none of the sightings have been verified in terms of the Marines and the federalized guards. And I mean, if you think about it, the Marines are trained in warfare on foreign soil. The idea that we would have Marines in a city that is under control, I mean, have there been skirmishes here and there? I mean, yes, that kind of thing happens all the time. Has it happened to the extent that we needed help? No. And in normal times, before this, if we've needed the help, the governor is always there. He would send the National Guard if we needed it. But if this whole situation hadn't happened, we wouldn't have needed the Guard. But also, let's just be clear. Today, the protests was no King's protest about the military parade. This protest, as you well know, has been planned for months and is happening all over the country. The protests that have been happening prior to today have been because of the ICE raids and the manner in which they've been carried out. So if it wasn't for the ICE raids, you wouldn't have had protests all week long. The only protest would have been today as part of the national effort.
Are you seeing any changes yet in the ICE raids? We saw the president change his position in the last couple of days, most likely because of business lobbying groups urging the president not to be going after farm workers, those who work in the hospitality industry, people working day in and day out to help the American economy and help businesses run. Are you seeing any shifts in the way these ICE raids are taking place? I know the president shifting his position has only happened in the last 24 hours.
Well, let me just tell you that the bottom line is we don't know. We don't know. I mean, okay, it's fine. You're not going to run through the fields. You know, Los Angeles doesn't have agricultural fields. And with
you
hotels
got restaurant
and
workers.
Well, and we have heard that, but we don't know that. That's what I mean in terms of, you know, trying to govern based on rumor. No one would have expected that they would have been chasing people through Home Depot parking lots or hanging out near schools, especially on graduation day. You know, so it is a sense of uncertainty in this city that has really contributed to a pall over the city in terms of fear. Now, you want to talk about our economy, and I know you know this as an economist. If there are entire sectors of our economy in Los Angeles that without immigrant labor, they would not function. Case in point, the construction industry, you know, and hospitality, of course. But we have a lot of rebuilding that we need to get done. And there is a list of sectors of our economy that cannot function without immigrant labor. So that's great if it's true that he's pulled back on restaurants and hotels, but which restaurants and which hotels? Are they the mom and pop restaurants in East LA and in the Valley and in South LA? Or are there giant chains? And so I think that the business owners, whether it's a giant chain or a small mom and pop, they all need relief and they don't need to be in fear. But it's one thing to say you're not going to raid the workforce. Do you think the customers want to come out? People don't want to come out. There's store shelves that are empty because people are not showing up. We've heard of graduations where 50% of the parents showed up. So it's not just a question of we're not going to bother the workforce. But what about the clients? Will they actually want to come to a restaurant? And we're finding that there is a sense of fear throughout not just the city, but, you know, LA County has 88 cities in it. 10 million people. LA County is larger than 40 states.
Ok, amigos. Protestas masivas, sí, pero pacíficas. La administración de Trump decidió amplificarlas, decidió exagerarlas, presentarlas como un caos total. ¿Por qué? Porque sí o sí tenían que justificar la presencia de fuerzas federales en una ciudad que ya estaba bajo control. Aquí entra algo que me parece muy fascinante y al mismo tiempo muy preocupante, y es la manipulación de la narrativa pública, amigos, porque Trump y su equipo no solo estaban respondiendo a una situación, estaban creando una situación. Y esto no es nuevo. Durante su presidencia, no solo en este mandato, sino que en su primer mandato, ya hemos visto repetidamente este tipo de tácticas similares, ¿no? Que es exagerar, amenazar, polarizar debates, usar el miedo como una herramienta política. Pero bueno, en este caso hay algo que parece especialmente problemático, ¿no? Porque, a ver, primero pensemos en el impacto que tienen estas declaraciones. Cuando tú dices que una ciudad está en caos, aunque no lo esté, lo que haces es generar pánico. Ya estás sembrando el miedo entre los ciudadanos, quienes empiezan a cuestionar la seguridad en sus propias comunidades. Y eso, amigos, no es inocuo. En este caso, el miedo afecta directamente a sectores que son vulnerables, ¿no? Como los inmigrantes. Hay redadas, bueno, hubo redadas en lugares inesperados, ¿no? Como el estacionamientos en Home Depot o cerca de escuelas. Solo imaginen el impacto psicológico que ahora tienen esas comunidades. ¿Por qué Trump quiere hacer esto? La respuesta es simple, pero aterradora. Es el control. Crear esta narrativa de caos que le permitió intervenir militarmente en una ciudad sin una necesidad real. O sea, y aquí no tenemos solo un problema ético, es un precedente muy peligroso, señores, para la democracia. Si un presidente puede inventar caos solo para justificar su intervención, ¿dónde queda la autonomía local? ¿Dónde queda el federalismo? Pues bueno, señores, la administración no solo exageró, ¿no?, el tamaño de las protestas en Los Ángeles, sino que, como vemos, esa exageración la utilizó como una herramienta política para poder justificar estas intervenciones innecesarias. ¿Pero qué opinan ustedes? ¿Creen que los políticos deberían tener claros estos límites, ¿no?, sobre cómo pueden usar el miedo para justificar sus decisiones? ¿Cómo podemos proteger la democracia de este tipo de manipulación? Los invito a que me dejen sus opiniones en la caja de comentarios. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final de este video. Recuerda, como siempre, dale like, comparte nuestro contenido y suscríbete a nuestro canal Políticamente en Desacuerdo. Nos vemos en el próximo video. Hasta luego.